Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're talking about carbs, fats, and proteins. Oh my! We are going to talk about what are macronutrients, what is the use of each of those macronutrients in the body, and then recommendations that you can use to get a proper amount of macronutrients in your diet. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Look at me! I'm in my office.
Yay!
We are not together just yet, but it will happen on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We're very excited about that.
Okay.
So we're back from travel, both of us.
I know.
And that's exciting.
Oof.
How was NYC?
Oh my gosh. Well, I texted you immediately because I was like, I have my own Airbnb. Oh no, you called. Actually, hang on.
I called you.
You called me. I didn't answer because we were.
And then I called Michael.
And then you called Michael, and then we answered because you called me and we were in crisis mode having dinner. And then you called Michael, and I was like, you should probably pick up if she's calling you.
Thinking I was like, something's wrong. Nope.
Nothing was wrong. Everything was fine.
Want to say hi.
Yeah. So, okay. So that day, so we left Friday morning pretty early, which fine, but it was better. So originally we went to Troy, New York. And so originally we were supposed to get there at midnight. And so that was going to suck. But then we ended up changing our flights to get there around 5 o'clock, which I was like, oh, great. We can get settled. We can get dinner. Yeah.
Yes.
Figure out our stuff. Well, of course not, because flights get delayed for whatever reason. And so we got delayed, and the airport we were in Charlotte. It was just so packed.
Oh yeah. One
of those where I was like, where, did they either not design this wing of the terminal well, or why is there so many people in one?
That's such a connecting place. I feel like everyone connects in Charlotte. Yeah.
It was horrible. So we were there. Flight was delayed. Okay, fine. We get on the flight. We probably land in Troy maybe around 7:30, which, okay, not too bad. So my cousin is from there texted me, where are you guys staying? And I told him, he's like, a little sketch, but you'll be okay. And I was like, okay, I don't really care. That's fine. As long as the Airbnb is okay. So we get to the Airbnb, and the area is a little sketch. A little would be an undertaking. But I was like, whatever, as long as we're safe.
Is it Compton? Remember my Compton Airbnb?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't not Compton. It was definitely okay, what are we doing here? People, where are you in your mind, people?
Gotcha. Yes.
So I was whatever. So I go to open the door, but the door was dead bolted and closed, but not closed. So it was almost like they dead bolted it and then tried to close it,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's weird. But I was
That's odd.
So of course you walk in, and I'm like, is there going to be somebody that pops up behind the curtain here?
A squatter. Yeah.
Yes. Because you're I don't know. So I'm looking around, I'm like, okay. And so when we traveled, in the Airbnb thing, I was like, we need air conditioning because we were from Arizona and we're going to the East Coast, which sometimes doesn't have air conditioning. So we need it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it's kind of warm and it smells like pot. So correct. And so I'm like, pot smell, fine. I can deal with the warm. I can't. So I'm walking around, I'm looking through, and I'm like, the house is kind of dirty, just not correct, not clean. And so there's one air conditioning unit in the kitchen in the back. And I was like, okay, well, that's not gonna we're gonna have to crank that.
The box unit?
Window unit.
Oh, and it's in the back kitchen?
In the back. Yeah.
Not in the rooms.
No, nothing in the rooms.
Oh my God.
So I'm looking at the walls, and the walls are all stained, not blood, but certainly not other stuff. And so I'm like, okay, gross. You can easily paint, and it's not it needed a touch up. It needed new paint. So, okay, that's not the hill I'm going to die on. So I'm walking around, the furniture is all beat up. You know how you get the wooden furniture, but it starts to peel from Target and stuff. That's happening. And I'm like, again, you can go to Goodwill and just get an end table. It's not we know.
I've given Goodwill great couches.
Same. I've given Goodwill a lot of good stuff. And so I was like, okay, whatever. But then Michael and I are kind of talking, and I'm like, well, that's the air conditioning thing's not going to work, because then we can't close the bedroom doors because then we need the air conditioning to come in, right? But if you close the bedroom door, like now it's going to be hot in the rooms. And I look up at the ceiling fan, and I sent you the picture. The ceiling fan was so dirty. Like I was just like, oh my God, we can't even turn on the ceiling fans because it's like, yeah, like I was like, I'm not going to breathe that in all night. And then I'm like,
it was bad, you guys. It was like black.
Yes.
Of just like dirt.
And then you start looking, because in the East Coast, the heat is like on the baseboards, essentially. I don't know how to describe it. I'm sure there's a word for it, but the baseboards are the heating source. And so like, I'm looking at the base and they're just like rusted, and everything was just like, oh my God. So I'm starting to like freak out, and I'm hungry, and I'm pregnant. So I'm super awesome around. And,
well, I mean, that's unhealthy.
Yes.
Like,
well, and I'm like, and we're supposed to stay here for like 3 nights, 4 days. And so,
nope.
Yeah. So Michael's like, it's not that bad. It's okay. Like it'll be fine. And so I was like, no, he's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, let's just go to a hotel. I was like, I don't know yet. Like, I don't want to, like, I just don't know, cause you're like, shit, am I going to lose all this money? And like, then I'm going to pay for the hotel still. And so I'm going to be double out of money and all that. Like, and I'm hungry. So
I may spend more money to eat.
Yeah. So I was like, let's go eat. And then I'm going to call the girl that runs the place. And so I call her, and she's like, hello. And I was like, okay, if there's a random number calling you and you own an Airbnb, it's probably the person staying in your Airbnb.
Right.
So I call her, and I'm like, hey, I just want to know, like, there's only one air conditioning. Oh yeah, it'll cool the whole place down. And I was like, okay. No. And then I was like, also, like, the ceiling fans are incredibly dirty where I'm not going to turn them on. Like, are you aware of that? And she goes, yeah, maintenance hasn't been able to get out there because of the height. And I'm like,
it's like this fan right here.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay. And she's like, is there anything else I can help you with? And I was like, at that point, you're just like, no, I don't know.
Give me a fucking refund.
Yeah. So I'm like, no, I'll give you a call in a second. And so I hang up. And so I tell Michael, and Michael goes in the closet where they keep the cleaning supplies, and he pulls out like the mop to prove that you could reach, like, with a Swiffer. The mop is so disgusting. Right. And I'm like, okay, so the mop is even fucking gross. Like,
what? They don't give a shit.
No. And so I'm like, let's go to dinner. So I start messaging Airbnb, and of course, like, you have to let them know, like the person know, and then you have to let them know. And so I did chalk up my fears of safety a little bit more because of the deadbolt issue and the, like, walking in initially. And then I just took pictures and sent it to them. I was like, this is totally not acceptable.
No. How much was it per night?
The whole it was $85 per night.
Okay.
Which was anywhere, like, I looked on it, it was anywhere from like $85 a night to like $120 a night. So there wasn't.
So it's common. Okay.
Yeah. Like, I didn't get like the cheapest one, but I got like on the cheaper end. So I was like, well, we're not even going to really be there.
Right.
So, we ended up getting a hotel, but of course, so 3 of the hotels that were in another area, 2 of them were completely sold out. And so I was like, oh my God, like, if we have to stay here, I'm going to lose my marbles. And then one of them only had 1 room left. And so Michael was working on that, and I was like, just book it. And he's like, okay, I'm going to book it. Like, thank God. So as this is happening, you're calling me and him, we're talking to you. We hang up.
I am comedic relief. I would like you to know.
Yeah. And then
perfect time.
2, so we're at this, because I was like, let's just get sushi or something, like, because that's like, because there's only pizza places or sushi. And I'm like, I don't want pizza right now. Like, I don't want to eat pizza and feel like shit when I'm already in. So we get sushi. And behind us, there's like almost like a English lesson class for somebody or something. So they're talking about like morals and losing your virginity and what sluts are and what, like, so Michael and I are sitting there. I'm about to lose my mind on the phone with somebody.
This is when you have that glass of wine you're allowed to have when you're pregnant.
I'm like on the phone trying to speak to somebody who obviously is not from or living in America, like, because they outsource their calls now. And I can't really understand them. And then this conversation over here is talking about like how people engage with sex and like loose morals and like what's the difference between a slut and a whore, and like
at a sushi restaurant.
Where
is Troy, New York?
Upstate.
Is there a lot of people in like buggies and
no, but there was an ice cream truck also on the side of the street called Mr. Ding-a-ling.
Oh,
so I was like, oh my God. So
this is a great episode of some
so I was
show.
like, I'm gonna fucking lose it. And of course, Michael being Michael was like, it's okay, hon. We'll take care of it. Like, let's eat and we're fine. And I'm like, I'm gonna die. And so, anyways, long story short, we got the hotel room. Of course, we get there at like 11 at night by the time this is all said and done, because you're trying to figure it out. And then I got a refund for $300, but not the $68.72 from Airbnb. And I was like, well, wait, why did I only, like, what?
I know.
So I was like, okay, I at least got the refund. I said, but it doesn't hurt to ask to get my 68. And so I got my 68. So they're like, oh yes, you're a special customer. I'm like, I've literally used Airbnb like 3 times. So I don't know how I'm a special customer, but I was like, okay. So we got our full refund and a hotel room that was clean, or at least under the assumption of it. And then we came back and all of our flights were on time. So that was yay, I know. And
why did you go there?
So that's a good question. My mom's my mom has 3 sisters. So there's 4 girls. And we haven't seen each other, like any of the cousins, since we were all really young. And so they wanted to do like a family reunion. And one of the sisters lives in Troy, New York. And she's got 3 kids of her own. And then her husband has 3 kids. So they've got like a Brady Bunch family. So that's just where we chose to go, I guess. I don't know why. So yeah, because
there's like
Colorado and California. So
Saratoga, great upstate New York. Shout out to Saratoga. Super fucking cute. Plus, it's racetrack season. So you guys could have had a blast watching some horses. Yeah, Saratoga. Tell your mom.
Okay.
Aunt, what's your mom's name again? I always forget.
Ann?
Ann. Yeah. The reason
go ahead.
I mess up because my mother-in-law's Ann. So like I think
it can't be 2 Anns. Well, here, and then I want to get, because I found out, I knew one of my aunts listened, Janet, because she texted me. We did give her a shout out. But apparently my other aunt, Nancy, listens.
Hi, Nancy.
Yeah, so that's, I was like, oh, hey, that's awesome.
Saratoga.
They're like, no, it really does help. It's really nice. And I was like, oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yes. They're like mainly your old friends. But
yes. And Nancy, if you don't subscribe and follow us, then now you need to do
review.
And review. Give us a 5-star review, Janet and Nancy.
Yes. So we both had, thank you, Airbnb. I guess that's what this podcast is about, is Airbnb horrors and how to get your money back. And we finally just got they still charge us for our dog deposit. And so Mark finally got it back. So I'm over it. Lesson for Airbnb. Remember, look at the reviews. Look at the reviews. Read the
reviews. And that was the thing.
Nobody put anything that it was that
nobody
disgusting.
Put anything. And I was like,
you left a review though, right?
Well, Michael said not to, since we got our money back.
That's probably every person on there. And now you're setting up another pregnant woman.
Because I was like, I should.
Yeah. You have the pictures to prove it.
Oh, yeah. Like, oh.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, so we were in Tulsa in a beautiful, very beautiful Airbnb. I loved it. It was amazing. And Dustin and his partner, I don't want to say his name because he's
high profile.
Thank you. I was going to say he's special. Wanted to show us a great time. So on Friday night, we were supposed to go to this country bar, but Dustin's doggy had an earache. So we ended up just having drinks and like having dinner and stuff. And then that's the night we called you. Okay. I have to tell you guys, one of the most embarrassing things that's happened to me in public that happened to me this weekend. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
So again, we're out, we're having drinks, whatever. They leave to go get the dog. Mark and I make new friends. Again, superpower.
Naturally.
And whatever, we're talking to them. One of them's a therapist, so I'm talking to him. And I like go to the restroom and I come back. And then the one guy we're talking to is like, oh, go tell that guy happy birthday. He's the owner of this place. Tell him happy birthday. and I go over, I'm like, happy birthday, da, 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 da. And I'm checking him. He's like, oh, I went to Arizona State. I'm like, oh, me too. And this guy, no, yeah, I did. Go Devils. And this guy goes, and he points down, my belt is unbuckled. Like my pants are buckled, but my belt is unbuckled. And I'm like, and it's like, not to be bouge, but it's like my Gucci belt. So like,
say, is this your Gucci belt that you just got fixed?
Yes. Oh yeah, you're with me. It's heavy. And I'm like, how did that happen? Because like, I wouldn't leave, I check the bottom of my shoes before I leave a bathroom. I check my teeth. I check, like I have this whole system. And I was like, I'm like, how long have I been walking around like this? And I'm like, okay, then my anxiety kicks in. I'm like, what if someone got a video of me and now I'm on one of those like, stupid shit girls do, or, girl in a bar, like having, I'm not going to say drunk because I wasn't, like, I was tipsy, but I had a whole situation about it. It's not that embarrassing.
My first thought was like, was someone trying to steal it?
Well, I didn't really, I was close to that. So it was like, Mark was talking to the guy, I forget his name. And he's like, go over there. And the owner, I doubt the owner is going to steal it. I think my purse, because I also have my purse on me, and like my purse kind of bounces like when I walk.
So maybe
it kind of like, but then I had this whole anxiety about walking around without my belt. Because to me, it's like, I am such a like, I never want to look out of craziness in public. Yeah. I want to look fun. There's a difference between fun and like, she doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Like she's not home.
Yeah. Like that to me is, I worked in the bar industry for so long. I'm like, I never want to be that person, who can't like stand on their own 2 feet. Right. And I never want to even look remotely close to that person. So that's why I was like mortified. Anyway. So the next day we go to brunch, and then they're like, kind of like, oh, let's show you this place and this place. And the place after brunch, we watched sand rugby. Ooh. Have you seen such a thing?
No, but rugby's hard.
Rugby's hard. And now we're in the sand. We don't wear a helmet nor goggles. The logistics of this, people were getting so much sand in their mouth, in their eyeballs. Women, it was female and male, not co-ed, but like you had one match of men, one match of women. The very, very intense, short bouts. I don't remember how long they were, but pretty intense. Very body positive. Very body positive.
I'm looking at
but the logistics of it, I was like, I don't understand. Why are you wearing goggles?
Well, and why sand?
I don't know.
Why not just play on a field that's normal?
Well, and this particular like brewery has like a volleyball deal, so I don't know if that's why. And like it's like a special occasion, but I was really freaked out. I did, however, meet up with a client. Did I say that already?
No.
I met up with listener Nicole and Kennedy. And they were very amazing. They were so just, when you're online, it is, you almost feel like someone's not real. There's in this box, right? Yeah. And to like see people, to give them a hug, to talk to them, to like have a meal with them was so much fun. So I did that too. So shout out to my ladies. It was a great time. And then, Tulsa. So I haven't talked to you about this yet. I think we're going to move to Tulsa.
What?
So hear me out. And just listen. Michael can come too. I already sent you a house. Yeah. I set Amanda a house. Cause
actually Michael and I talked about moving to Tulsa because he said something about, where were you guys? I was like, no, they're done with Tulsa. He's like, they were in Tulsa. And he's like, Tulsa's actually pretty nice.
Yes. And okay. Okay. Me out here. That house was sick, right? For $550,000. Now, even the homes in Tulsa proper. So we were by the University of Tulsa. It was absolutely gorgeous. I walked that campus every single day. Okay. They compare it to Austin before Austin got so popular. And hear this, guys. If you work remote, they will pay you $10,000 per person to come move to Tulsa as long as you have a lease or you buy a home.
Oh.
So 20 grand, if we just went there for the year, now obviously you are having a baby, pays for itself, because also real estate, a home that we looked at was like, I think 200 grand. No, it was 29. It was the same as the house we have here in Phoenix, and stunning, redone right by the campus. So if we leave, rent that shit out.
Right.
I mean, it's a pretty interesting situation they have there. And Dustin's like, you guys got to look into it. And obviously Dustin's there. So that's a big incentive. But yeah. Isn't it?
I'm on Redfin and I'm editing how I want to see my home.
Yeah, the home, look around the University of Tulsa. Like, I'm telling you, man. Now,
here's the Tulsa, what's the population?
It's not very big. They said it was like, well, and they have like rooftop places. They have fun little like outdoor like situations, like the sand volleyball bar. They have nice restaurants. They have different pockets of things, but they also have tornadoes. So
I was going to say, hold up though. Did you talk about the weather there? Because they should have some crappy snowstorms too.
No, they said snow is like, you can just like blow it away. Like, and it's nothing. It's in light dusting, as they said. The home, one of the homes I looked at had an unfinished basement, but still was like way under our budget.
Of course.
And I can make that. I do want a basement if I live in, Tornado Alley. So we've got to look into this.
I mean,
you can get a lot of property there.
Yeah, you can. Well, I mean, you can get a lot of property in Amarillo, Texas too, but
can you get not pool? Amarillo?
Yeah, you need a pool.
Oh, I don't know about pools.
I'm gonna have to
look into that. All right.
Okay.
You want to talk about today's subject?
Yes, I'm ready for it.
Let's go.
Hello, listeners. Coach Amanda here. For July, we are letting you know that our August cohort of the Mindset of Mommy's 8-week program is launching. So for this program, we are going to focus on your health before and during pregnancy through education, support, and confidence. In this program, you can expect to have more confidence for pregnancy by learning the benefits of movement and having a structured program to follow. The program will be 2 to 3 days per week, along with beginner and advanced movement options. In this program, you can also expect to increase your nutrition quality with personalized coaching from yours truly. We'll gain awareness to the changes you'll experience mentally, physically, and emotionally during pregnancy, create a strong network of support by learning about a diverse range of professionals to include in your health during this time, as well as gaining education on testing done throughout pregnancy. There'll also be a toolkit of resources that includes PDF documents, additional literature that I recommend, podcasts, and social media pages that support your healthiest pregnancy yet. On top of this, you'll get weekly community group calls, weekly written reviews, and our private forum to engage with other like-minded women. You can sign up for this program today for $3.99, and we will start our August cohort August 5th. So if you're interested, please visit mindsetofmommies.com to get more information and to sign up.
All right, so let's talk about some macros, shall we?
Yes, I think I don't even know. I mean, we've touched on nutrition, but we haven't done like, these are macros. This is nutrition. So I think this is a good episode because we did like a strict one on strength training. So this is next, I would say.
Yeah, I think this is good. And I think a lot of people don't understand like why macros was such a craze for so long and why it's absolutely necessary. There's a lot of diet culture arguments, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you shouldn't count your calories, you shouldn't count your macros, you shouldn't da-da-da-da. When in all reality, macronutrients are the nutrients your body needs, right? Like, your body needs them. And in the traditional American diet, we are not eating enough of any of them. Plus, we have polarized and demonized 2 of them. Right. And so I think it's really important to chat about. Now, what we're going to talk about today are just like recommendations for those of you listening who are like, how do I hit 40%, 30%, whatever? Don't worry. we're going to also give you some easy tips on increasing them over
Mhm.
time, because not everyone is going to hit macros all the time. For me, I only focus on my protein macros and let my carbs and fats kind of live where they want to live, because I know that for me, I'm going to get enough carbs and fats. But that is something I wanted to tell folks. When did you start kind of counting macros?
Ooh, I started.
Ooh!
I know, well, because I'm thinking like disorderly or like
Mhm.
in a positive sense. I started counting macros honestly probably in 2013, 2012 is when I started. And
Okay.
then yeah, because I was done with a school and that's when I started counting them because that's when I really started going to the gym. And then I stopped because I was doing paleo, and paleo was all about like just eat these foods and it's fine. And so I was like, okay. And then I started counting macros again when we were in Amarillo. And then I took a
Mhm.
break because it was getting disordered. And then I started again, maybe 2018, I want to say, because I was kind of like, where am I at? I don't even know.
Mhm.
But one thing I did want to touch on is you had mentioned before, like in kind of the intro piece of the macro topic, is that they're demonized. And I think it's important for people to recognize, like, you don't have to count macros, you don't have to count calories. But if you are consuming food, I think it does provide valuable information on the food that you purchase. So even if,
Absolutely.
yeah, like even if you decide like, oh, I don't really care about the macro part of all this, like in getting the numbers and tracking calories, I think it's important for you to take away when you're looking at a box of something to be able to determine what those macros actually mean for it, instead of just being like, oh no, it has fat, I can't have that. Or, oh
Right.
no,
Right.
it's low carb, like, oh, so this is the better pick for me. And being able to apply maybe what we're going to talk about in that sense too. So I did want
Absolutely. Well, and here's the thing is like the nutrition labels show these things for a reason.
right.
Like they're just not these, pretend new, what's the word they call superfoods or anything like that. Like
Mhm.
2 out of the 3 macronutrients are essential,
Yes.
meaning that we have to consume them to get
Mhm.
the benefit from them. The only one that's not essential is carbohydrates, as we do produce glucose in our body, right?
Mhm.
And that's really important to kind of debunk some of the like bullshit out there. But yeah, like you said, at least knowing what's in your food and like trying to be like, okay, like I as a woman, especially women in my age group, protein is so important, which we will talk about. So let's talk about what like each macronutrient is, as I was kind of going into
Uh-huh.
that. But the one that everyone hears about is protein, right?
Uh-huh.
So protein are amino acids, and in our body we have non-essential amino acids and conditionally essential amino acids, okay? Then we have essential. So what that means is non-essential amino acids are amino acids that our body already produces. Conditionally essential are usually synthesized by the body under certain conditions, and then essential amino acids are acids that we obtain through our diet. So long story short, we don't get all of the amino acids that our body needs, and food provides that for us. And so, protein has so many different amazing benefits to the body. One that we've already talked about, which is helps with building muscle, but it helps with in like almost all of the cell at the cellular level, right?
Yeah.
Helps with building tissue. It helps with growing your hair. It helps with so many things.
Mhm.
What would you add? Like what?
I would say to think of amino, like, so when you're talking about protein, protein is broken down into amino acids, and amino acids are essentially like a building block for your
Mhm.
body. And
Yep.
so when you're talking about like women your age in this 40-ish era, like perimenopause, menopause, it's really important. But from my age group of, we'll say the 25 to 35-year-olds, protein is just as important as well. And I notice that
Mhm.
a lot of our clients come into our program under consuming it. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so protein, so like some examples of what protein is, it's your meats, right? And so
Mhm.
when Christina's talking about the essentials, you have to have meat or you have to get really crafty if you're with a vegetarian or vegan diet on making sure that you are getting those amino acids that we're talking about. So those portions of the protein building blocks.
Right.
So meats, chicken, beef,
Egg,
pork, what
dairy.
else? Yeah, birds, bison.
Bird.
Yeah. And so it's important to like what's not a protein is peanut butter. What's not a protein are nuts. What's not a protein is like avocado, because I'll see that a lot too, where
Right.
they're like, well, I thought I was having a lot of protein. And it's like, those are actually considered fats, which is great. I'm happy you're having them. But let's actually look at what protein under this category of macronutrient that you're having. And let's see how we can increase it if we need to.
Right. No, I see that a lot too. And there's a lot of marketing out there that says this is a high protein meal or high protein bar or high protein cereal. They just want to put protein on it because it has some. But again, I had mentioned this in a previous podcast, is the way we look at something as high protein is what is or as the way you understand a macronutrient in general is what are we getting the majority of the calories from, right? So a chicken breast is going to have 26 grams of protein and maybe 1.5 grams of fat and no carbohydrates, right? So 1.5 grams of fat is 18. Oh, what is that? God, here we go
like,
again.
Calorie
27. Yeah, 27.5 calories. Whereas 26 grams of protein is 100 and something calories. So you're getting the majority of the calories come from protein, right? So when we look at nut butters, peanut butters, the majority of those calories are coming from the fats. So that's really important. And just be aware of the marketing on this because it is such a hot topic right now. A lot of companies. I mean, I look at some things, I'm like, this has 2 grams of protein and it's calling it a high protein meal or something like that, which is silly. But protein is going to help us with muscle repair, muscle growth. And like you said, it's like our building blocks. It's our building blocks to our bodies. And what would you say is the average amount of protein that clients come in consuming?
60.
Yeah, I was going to say anywhere from like 60 to 80.
Yeah.
It can be so hard for people to get protein in their diets, like in their brain. They're like, I can't possibly eat all this meat. It's like, babe, take a deep breath. We can make a beautiful low volume meal that is high protein, right? So what I often see is someone be like, well, I had an egg today. Like,
that's
congratulations.
I'm like, can we have 2 eggs? And they go, ooh. And I'm like, let's just try. Let's just try.
2 eggs to me is like drinking water.
2 eggs. Yeah. I have a bare minimum of 3 eggs.
I do a cup of egg whites.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
But
it doesn't have to be that like I'm scarfing down a steak every day, which I think a lot of people think that is how they get the protein in. Things like 8 ounces of Greek yogurt. And you can double it up. Say it's plain Greek yogurt and you throw in some protein powder, then you've now increased it, right? Or you do eggs and maybe you had some steak last night and you have that left over, mix those together. You can do, I'll do a cup of egg whites, 2 turkey sausage patties, and some cheese. Obviously, a cheese is fat. That's going to double it up. Even just doubling the meat on your sandwich.
Yep.
Look at what you're currently eating that's a true protein and just double it. Double it.
Yeah.
Right.
And one thing I do want to, because you've touched on this with the protein powders and then the marketing too. So we encourage clients to use protein powders, and that includes, like, I want to bring up the BCAAs and the protein bars sparingly, right? So if we're trying to get you to have protein, like, there are some strategies that we use where we do use those products, but overall, I like clients to use those products like when you're in a pinch. So for example, I'm going to the airport, I'm going to bring in a protein bar just in case I get hungry on the plane and I can't really do anything about it. But what I want to encourage you to do, going back to our initial conversation too, is looking at the labels of these things. So as you're talking about, like, Cliff bars are notorious for this. So people think, oh, Cliff bars, like, that's a protein bar. It's a carb bar. It's a lot of carbs. And so when you're looking at the back, like Christina said, if you see more protein, than carbs. Most protein bars are pretty even on their protein and carb content. I have yet to find one that's like astronomically higher than the carbs just because of the way it's processed.
Right.
But like a Cliff Bar, you'll see like protein is like 9 grams on that, and the carbs are like 32.
45 grams.
Yeah. They're high. And so I'm like, okay, that's not a protein bar. But like the Built bars, barbells, One bars, I've even had clients do the Kirkland Fit Crunch. So those are all higher protein. Yes, your carbs are higher, but something you would look at when you're looking at protein powder as well. So that's another thing. Like it's a great addition, but not a meal replacement.
Right.
So
I want to enhance that. I want to just enhance that a bit because what we've talked about the thermic effect of food, meaning that our body burns energy, calories, by breaking down food. Now, something that's so processed into a powder or a bar is going to go through our system much faster than a true piece of chicken or the egg whites or the Greek yogurt. Protein is the macronutrient that takes the longest to break down, meaning that it slows gastric emptying, meaning that you're going to stay fuller longer, meaning that you will also have more a steady blood sugar, unless you have some issues with like diabetes. Even then, steady blood sugar throughout that meal, which is great. That's what we want. So that's another reason is thinking about like, if it is in a powder form, like how quickly do we think it's going to go through our system?
Well, and I would even that, like not thinking of the science of it, is have the protein bar or the protein drink and just like what we talk about is listen to your body, think about how you feel, like monitor yourself, see how you feel in a little bit. Then the next day, maybe have like deli turkey slices or something like that instead for a snack, and then see how you feel. More likely than not, like you're talking about, the actual food content, like food is going to keep you fuller longer. It's also going to make you feel a little bit better.
Absolutely. And again, just coming back to women my age, our whole goal is to maintain muscle mass. It definitely begins to break down as we get older, as our hormones change. Being able to have an adequate amount of protein in our diet is going to help, like you said, build and or maintain. For example, I have a client who just had ankle surgery and she was scared she's going to lose the muscle mass. And I said, look, we're just going to really focus on protein, and it's going to be a bit higher right now just to make sure that you maintain that muscle. Plus, the more protein that she has, the better for her recovery, right? Because again, building blocks. And also for women my age, kind of coming back to that blood sugar regulation, as we go through perimenopause and the menopause transition, we naturally have higher blood sugars. And so we want to make sure that we're eating in a way, as I had mentioned, eating whole proteins, whole foods, so that we can slow down that process and we don't get into, struggles with things like insulin resistance and such. And, again, protein, it's so important for me. It is the macronutrient that I make sure I hit. I give myself about a 10% variance to hit it, because some days it's higher, some days it's lower. I know for you, it's pretty, like you're pretty spot on, maybe over the recommended amount. Would you say?
What's your protein goal, out of curiosity?
145.
Yeah, mine's about anywhere from 140 to 160 is what I usually get.
Yeah, I get anywhere from like 120 to 145.
Yeah.
So when I say 10%, I mean under. So, let's not recreate the wheel. You can mix proteins. That's the beautiful thing. And then if you look at some of the plant proteins, and I'll link that sheet we have that has the animal proteins and the plant proteins, and it says choose one, choose two. That was so helpful for our clients. They're like, oh, I'll make an egg white omelet with some spinach and some black beans, and I have 45 grams of protein. I'm like, yeah, girl, get it.
Can we touch on that? Because what I see with a lot of clients, and just women in general, is they get behind the curve on protein for the day.
Great topic.
So when you're talking about, like, I am really glad that you brought up breakfast for that. We tend not to want to eat breakfast because we're fasting or we're just not hungry in the morning. But realizing when you're doing that, you're taking out we'll say 25% of a protein opportunity for you to have.
Yep.
And I'm saying 25%. So figure we have 4 meals a day. 3 of them are like a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then a snack. That's what most people have. Mm-hmm. So if I'm taking out one of those meals, I'm taking out 25% of a protein opportunity. I've got to find 25% to add back into the day. And I think that's where you see the overwhelming like glaze over of the client looking and being like, I'm supposed to add how much more protein? And it's for me and clients, I know you do too, we encourage have breakfast, have the egg whites or the whole egg, add the meat to it, add the spinach, add the black beans, because not only are you getting ahead on your protein, you're getting ahead on your fiber as well. And you're going to feel a lot more satiated throughout the day. Whereas when I see clients who restrict breakfast, they end up reaching for like that bagel at like 9 a.m. And then lunch is like whatever they can figure out. Whereas if we tend to have a hearty breakfast, we don't really need that bagel. And our lunch choice tends to be more in line with what our goal is too. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and there's a plethora of evidence-based studies that show when you start your day with a high protein meal that your blood sugar stays stable. Why is that important? For those of you who struggle with food noise and binge eating, when our blood sugars are more stable, we minimize cravings, we minimize shakiness in between meals, we minimize that kind of fatigue. So it's beyond I'm going to eat protein so I can get ripped. Like if we haven't convinced you on things way outside of that, then we haven't done our job. But like there's so many things that for women who struggle with weight loss, that just simply by increasing their protein and eating it first.
Yes.
Right? Because for some of our clients, this is the first thing we do. We don't even touch calories. We just say, okay, looking at how you're eating, let's just increase our protein at each meal.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the hand portions guide here in a little bit to how to do that. So
that's funny because the new client I have, that's literally what we're doing is like, I want protein at your snack. And she's like,
yes.
Really? I'm like, don't worry about the calories. If we like, there is no calorie right now. Like we do not have a target. It is just, let's have protein with your snack.
Yep.
I think I can do that. I'm like, we can.
Yes. So good. So that's proteins. Let's talk about the redheaded stepchild of macronutrients, carbohydrates. So back in my day, fat was the bad guy, right? Fats, low fat, everything, low fat cookies, low fat, blah, 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 low fat licorice. Yeah. So people would eat licorice because it's like, oh, there's no fat in this. I'm like, really? And then everyone's like, oh, we've got to figure out a new way to like get people to eat our food. So now we're going to talk, instead of low fat, we need our fats to be sold. So we're going to go low carb and we're going to have people eat bacon and eggs and shit for their meal.
Yeah.
So I want to explain something to everyone here. Low carb diets, why people lose weight initially, is because the word is carbohydrate. Hydrate. For every gram of carb, we retain anywhere from like 3 to 6 grams, we'll say 4 grams of water. Okay. This is water we need. People don't realize, like, to hydrate your body, a lot of your hydration comes from food. Right? So when we see people go into a low carb diet and lose this weight, they're just losing. It's like, squeezing a sponge or like wringing out a towel. Like you're losing water. You're not actually losing fat. So I wanted to say that. So you can eat carbs. Carbohydrates are absolutely necessary. They provide us our energy, and they are the first and the fastest energy and the preferred source of energy that our bodies like, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I interrupt this episode to bring you our second July promo, which is $48 for our Mindset Method self-guided coaching program. This program was designed to help you rewire your mind through my psychological curriculum. The method: know, name, notice, and nurture. This 16-course series that you'll have 1 year's access to is going to allow you to understand and put the puzzle pieces together to why you can't keep yourself as a priority. We'll help you catch self-defeating beliefs. We'll help you create new boundaries inside and out. And we will help you reframe your mind so that you are number one in your life. If you're interested in signing up for this program, you'll find the link in the show notes below. Again, it's a 16-course series. You'll get a weekly reflection that goes through the method. You'll get daily journal prompts. You'll get access to our community forum. And as a bonus, you will get access to the Mindset Movement Fitness app for $1 for the first month. So you guys definitely want to join. So if you want more information, check the show notes below. Now back to the show. And so also and I'm just going to keep coming back to this, in a changing body, there's this misconception that I need to cut my carbs. But if my body's not getting the energy that it needs because I'm in a low carb state, plus I'm already, my estrogen is lowering, my progesterone is lowering, that when estrogen and progesterone help to kind of keep us chilled out, like they help us manage stress better than when we don't have them. That's why that week before your period, you feel like a psychopath, because we don't have those, our hormones are all effed up. Not effed up. They're doing what they're supposed to do. You get what I'm saying? But when we go through the menopause transition, we are kind of like stress barriers are lower. Now we're also eating low carb, which is a stress on our body. So then because we're stressed, we have higher cortisol, and then this whole domino effect happens, and we're eating no carbs, but we're still maybe maintaining our weight or not losing. So carbs are the best, man. And how many people do you talk to? You're like, I don't eat carbs. And you're like, well, do you eat fruit? And they're like,
This
yeah.
is going to be my next thing for us.
Yeah.
Let's define what a carb is in like actual food, right? So we can define what a carb is metabolically and when you ingest it. But now when we're looking at carbs, so like you're saying, most people go, oh, I don't eat carbs. Meaning when they say that, they're meaning I don't eat highly processed foods, or I try to not. So highly processed foods are your cakes, your cookies, your box, and your bagged items per se.
Yep.
Now, carbs are also, like you said, fruit. Carbs are also vegetables. Carbs are also like your starches. So like your potatoes, your beans, quinoas, your grains and whatnot. So bread. So when you say, I don't eat carbs, I try and remember like it might be coming from a place of lack of knowledge of that. And then I also think that's what's been marketed, right? Not understanding that vegetables are carbs. And so what we want to do is most of your plate or most of your meals when you have carbs should be colors. And that's how I like to look at it with clients is what color can I add to this? Because if you think about it, most of your processed foods don't really have a color unless it's been added. And even then,
and it's like orange.
Or like a white pasty pale. And so you want to remember like that's okay, but I firmly believe you are intelligent enough, even if we have very minimal nutrient education, that you know that this isn't a true color of this item. Like, you know, the wheat that it took to create the pasta is not actually this like white color. So when we talk about carbs, we're saying carbs are great when they're mostly nutrient dense carbs, colored carbs, fruits, veggies. If it comes
they have a skin.
Yes. If it comes from the ground or a tree, you're probably good. And you want to think about, go ahead.
I was going to talk about fiber, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to say, you want to think about the process of the carbs too. So like, if you think of like, I picked an apple, that's a good nutrient quality. But if I'm having applesauce out of a plastic container, there's probably several processes that took to get there. You can't just pick applesauce. So that's another way to think about carbohydrates or things that you're adding to your plate that don't necessarily have to do with macro counting too.
Absolutely. And, fiber is so, so important. It helps us with, again, just, feeling fuller longer. It helps us with, kind of taking our food and helping it digest, right? And so anything with the skin, okay, that's going to be your highest fiber foods.
Yep.
So the glycemic index, if we look at it, it's the berries, right? So a blueberry that has that kind of, rough skin around it that's a high fiber food, whereas something like watermelon, right? You don't eat the skin, right? Or is it the rind?
I don't know. The outside.
Yeah, the outside. You just eat the inside. Now it's considered high glycemic, but it is mostly water. That's another conversation. But pineapple, things that don't have a skin on them. But with that said, guess what has skin on it? Motherfucking potatoes that people are like, I can't eat potatoes. Like, what are you talking about? Potatoes are great for you. I love potatoes, man. God, guys, eat your fucking potatoes. Eat your potatoes. But
and actually
high fiber,
if you think they are either too, I would just
agreed. But we'll get into recommendations for fiber as well. But let's just finish this off with fats. Yay.
Well, I think I only love fat so much because I love avocado so much. Because that's probably the primary source of like true fat that I eat.
I love olive oil, baby.
Oh yeah, olive oil is so good.
But fats are amazing for your hormone production. They help with even, again, like your skin and your nails, and they are delicious. They're satiating too. And as we've learned, you have omega-3s and omega-6s. Now, omega-6s are the ones we want to kind of steer clear of. Omega-3s are the ones we want more in our diet. I think on a podcast earlier, I said something about omega-6s wrong. I think I had a little, but omega-3s are amazing. They're anti-inflammatory, which a lot of us live in very inflamed bodies. And recently I was doing a course and they said, some of your clients don't even necessarily need to go on a diet per se. They need to go into anti-inflammatory foods because they just need to lose about 5 to 10 pounds of inflammation in their body from just shit, and each person's going to be different. But your fats, let's go into that. You have the fats we prefer, which are your omega-3s, your olive oil. Now, we are not buying olive oil in a plastic bottle, okay? It needs to be cold pressed. It needs to be extra virgin. It needs to be in a dark container, and we need to close it. When you don't do that, it's useless. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Why are you laughing?
Because it was very like, that's what we're gonna
that's what we're gonna do now.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
I bought an olive oil for here, and I was like, I don't want to spend all this money, but and that's the thing, is it's expensive.
The nice olive oil does cost a little bit more, but it's worth it.
Yeah. It's worth it. Nuts, seeds, as you mentioned, good old avocado. I have avocado every day. Cheese also has a bit of protein in it. What was that?
Butter.
Yep. Nut butters, right? Obviously from nuts.
Ghee,
so
coconut oil.
Ghee. Avocado oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. Now, you'll hear a lot on the internet about differences in oils and all that, but, I prefer olive oil or avocado oil, personally.
Yeah, that's what, if we cook with one of those two.
Yeah. Now, I have done the thing where I bought the spray butters that are no calorie and the spray whatever that's no calorie. Don't do that.
Yeah, but see, that goes back to the marketing and the food labels though too, because so if you don't know this, here's another takeaway from this episode is they don't have to, because it's so minimal of the calories, there's a certain amount of calories that if they don't hit that technically when you spray, the food label doesn't have to indicate that there are calories, but there are calories. So, and that's all marketing and deception for you. So, and it's not to say that, say you are tracking macros and calories, that if you use a spray oil, I'm like, don't worry about that. That is so minor on our thing here. But I will encourage clients, because there are oils and there are butters that we cook with. So I do say, hey, if you really want to get nitty gritty on this, just add a tablespoon of olive oil every day to your log. And that way you have some cushion, because did you use a whole tablespoon of olive oil or butter to cook your eggs? Probably not. But throughout the day, as you accumulate the food that you've cooked, did you use a tablespoon? Probably.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a trick that I like to just, and even if you didn't, great, there's cushion. And if you did, great, there's not cushion, or, it fluctuates.
if you want to get nitty gritty, here's how I do it is I take, so say it's like a high fat product. So think like dressing, oils, nut butter, right? I just put the whole container on the scale for those of you who, zero it out. And then I'll put it on my lunch today has olive oil as like the dressing with salt and pepper. And I'll just put it on my food, put it back on the scale. And that negative amount is what I put in my Fitness Pal. So yeah, some people will try to like spoon it in and like, no, just put the whole thing on, zero it out, blah, 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 put it back on. There you go. These are things though that can add up, right? But also for the clients who are listening to us and doing this the correct way, these are also the things you can add back into your diet when you're reversing that make your foods more calorie dense without adding volume to your food, meaning you're not making this big old, you're not eating 10 avocados. You are adding a tablespoon of olive oil and you literally increased your calories by 100 for that day, you know? So fats, we love some fats.
We do.
So
I'm going to ask you this back at you of what's the average fat number that you see with clients coming in? Is there one?
God.
I know.
I don't know of an average, but it's carbs and fats are high.
Yes.
Carbs and fats are very high.
Yeah. And I don't even think they realize the fats are high because of the foods they're eating. Like I don't see, when I look and I see the fats are high and then I look at the log, it's more so because of the types of food as opposed to like they're having avocado, they're having nuts and seeds, they're having the full fat Greek yogurt. It's more so of like they're having the bag of chips or they're having the M&Ms or something like that, where I'm like, I'm glad we're eating, but the fats we want are actually going to come again from the apples and the trees and whatnot in the ground.
Yeah. We were on the road on Sunday and because we didn't have an Airbnb, we didn't have any foods prepped. Plus it's Sunday. So we ended up at McDonald's and I had an egg McMuffin, which is the lowest calorie item on the menu, and a hash brown. So I had that. And then we went to a sandwich place. I had a sandwich. And then for dinner, we had fajitas. And my fat content was so high.
I bet.
God.
But see, and you're not even intentionally doing it. It's just like the foods that they're preparing.
Right. It was so high. Now, obviously, we were eating out all of our meals because of travel, but it can definitely add up. Let's talk about alcohol. I know we just touched on this in our last few episodes, but alcohol is the fourth macronutrient. The problem with alcohol is it's ethanol. It's not an actual macro, right? But it has calories. So for alcohol, we want to make sure we're taking the total calories. So again, a White Claw, 100 calories. And if you are tracking macros, you divide by 4 if you want to track it as a carb, or divide by 9 if you want to track it as a fat. Yes. Now, MyFitnessPal will have the calories correct, but then the macros won't be correct. So then people are like, oh, I still have all these carbs left, because in the actual like data, like the entry, it says 100 calories, 000.
Yes.
Or something stupid like Michelob Ultra only has 4 carbs. No, I mean, sure, it doesn't have any nutrients.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting energy from a Michelob Ultra.
Right.
You know, so alcohol, definitely want to make sure we're tracking that. And, you know, listen to that episode if you haven't heard it yet. So let's talk about recommendations. I want to hear yours, and then I'm going to give you mine.
Okay. So mine for protein, I like clients at a bare minimum of 100 grams per day on average. Now, so like how we talked about my range and your range. So say, for example, today a client got 90 and tomorrow they get 110 and then another day they get 100 out of those 3 days. It's 100 on average. I'm okay with that. So then I actually like fats to be maybe around 60, 65. And then I go into fiber is my key. And I like that a bare minimum of 25. Yep. Then from there, I determine how I'm liking the carbs.
Yeah. So For me, it's more percentages, like 45 for carbs, 45 to 65% of your daily calories coming from carbohydrates. For protein, depending on their goals, we can go anywhere from, I like 100 grams. Some people will say like 0.8 of your whatever.
Yeah.
The RDA recommendations are crap, meaning like the recommendations, like for if it's 0.8% and you're 100 pounds, that's like nothing. It's because then you're divided by 2.2, so you're dividing it because it's 0.8% of kilograms of body weight. So it's being like 50 grams of protein or something like that. Everyone's like, will you guys learn math one of these days? No.
We have husbands that do that.
Yeah. Thank you. So for my clients though, who are like, I want to look, build that strength, that strong body. I want to look lean and tone. I try to get them to 1 gram of protein per body weight. For some in a surplus, I'll get them a bit higher. For me, it really is slowly increasing it. Because again, they started at 80. Now we're trying to get them to, 120, for example. And so every week we look at their food logs and I say, okay, that ham sandwich that you had 2 ounces. Let's make it 4. Right. And so we'll start increasing. And then for fats, about 10 to 30% of their total calories coming from fats, unless they are that person who is more inflamed. We're seeing changes in their bodies. So we can use fats and carbs in a way to best support the client's needs too. So obviously if we are, if I'm seeing these big spikes in I'm going to say spikes in blood sugar, but it's more symptoms from clients, then I'm going to look at the quality of the carbohydrates. So, 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. And then I'm going to look at where their fats are as well. And for me, another thing that I've been doing with clients is as we get older, not only are we looking at the quality of their food, but also we want to make sure that when we're eating carbohydrates, we are never eating them naked. We always have some protein or fat with them. It's so
funny when you talk about this stuff for your demographic, because the same applies for mine. So it's like, and so then again, why don't
with pregnancy?
Yeah. So for example, when we're talking about pregnancy and the best kind of way to optimize it for nutrition standards is, one, you want high protein, high fat. So there's your Mediterranean kind of diet there, low carbs. And if you do carbs, you want the non-starchy carbs as much as you can. So then on top of that, when you're talking about the protein too, is protein requirements for pregnancy are actually really, really low. And so they actually recommend starting at 1.6 grams per kilograms and then going up from there. Then you were saying, sorry, what were you saying originally that got me on that topic?
Inflammation.
Your naked carbs. So usually in first trimester, it's really hard to have protein because there's a meat aversion. And you want bland food. So have the carb, have the rice cake. But when you have the rice cake, have the peanut butter on it and then see if you can follow it up with a protein. So we don't want the naked carbs like you're talking about because of the spikes in blood sugar, because you want to minimize those. And so same thing with even gestational diabetes is you want to minimize the spikes in blood sugar. And so how do we do that? We have long satiety signals through proteins and fats, and then we have carbs that are nutrient dense. So I just wanted to bring that up because every time you bring it up, I'm like, God, it's the same thing.
Yeah. And I misspoke for fats, 25 to 35%. I think I said 10. I like them a little bit higher. But again, it's all depending on the client. So a lot of my clients, are going through the menopause transition. They have Hashimoto's, they have PCOS. So our diets are going to look a bit different. I've even seen a client recently do well on a macro cycling, even protein, low protein.
Really?
Low protein.
That's interesting.
Low protein, low carb, high fat. Now she really struggled with blood sugar. Her body wasn't responding to a traditional macronutrient diet. And she had some testing done and the naturopath said, you're not kind of clearing out, you're not metabolizing protein correctly and cortisol and some other things. So she had her go low protein for a short amount of time. She's going to, take her out of that. but it's been interesting to see because she's going to do photos for me because we also cycle her workouts based on her cycle. So it's been pretty remarkable. I'm not going to lie. I've been proven wrong.
Yeah.
Now, that's not for everyone, right? And since then, I've done more research on that, and I kind of hold that in my back pocket for clients who have a hard time with movement if everything else is, because I remember my one client, I actually talked to her yesterday on Instagram. She did everything. I mean, her diet was impeccable, and she was strength training, and there was no movement, none in a calorie deficit. And she has MS, right? And so she was going into a protocol to kind of do some of this detoxification of her body. I don't remember it wasn't a nutrition. It was like a machine of some sort. But I want to text her and be like, this is what I want you to try just for this short amount of time and get your body to a place where then we can slowly increase the protein. But it's interesting. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I don't have enough data. I do have one client doing it and she's feeling better. Her blood sugars aren't spiking. Even when she doesn't get great sleep, she still feels rested. Her cognitive fatigue has gone away.
Oh, that's nice.
You're like, can I have that?
Yeah, I'm like thinking,
I would like that.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about kind of.
Wait, we didn't talk about the plate method though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to.
Oh, okay, great. Good transition.
I was going to talk about, we're the best at transitions. It's hot as shit in this room, you guys. Like, and I have a sweater on.
So I was going to say, that looks like a sweater.
But it's like one of those things that if my hair is on my skin right now, I would die.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my hair is just going to be a mess. I'd rather be like sweating down my back than sweating down my neck.
Yes.
I digress. So there are some really cool ways, easy ways to get like enough of these into your diet. So you do plate, I'll do hands.
Okay. So plate method is if you look at your plate as a whole, then you can divide it into portions. So think of it like a pie chart. That's how I like to put it. So if we're going to be kind of ambitious, you can do a quarter of it is protein. We'll say a third to a quarter of it fats. I know that's a lot, but it depends on, again, like we talked about the ranges, like Christina has a percentage of range. I have a bare minimum of range. It depends on what you prefer too. Some clients gravitate more towards carbs versus fats.
That's true.
Then on that other half, so the other half too, we'll say maybe like 60% of the plate, we want our non-starchy vegetables. Now, so that's, say we are going to have starchy, so maybe there's some rice in there. So maybe we divide it up into like 25% protein. We'll say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to do this. 15% fats. So what am I at? 25, 40.
40.
So then, I know, I'm like, that's why I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to do this. So we got 40%, and then maybe 25% or 30% is going to be your non-starchy veggies. And then that remaining balance can be like your rice or pastas or something like that too.
Yep.
So it can fluctuate based on what you're going to have and based on what you prefer. But again, our bare minimum of protein maybe needs to be that, even we'll say 15 to 25%, depending on how much you're having. And then you need to have a bare minimum of 15 to 25% of fats. And then you need a nice big chunk for those leafy kind of greens, vegetables that you have there.
Love. Another easy way to do it is with your hand. So the palm of your hand is the palm and the thickness. Okay. So that's the important part, is the thickness, because palm of my hand could be one egg.
Yep.
That's not enough. We already said that. So the palm of your hand, you want 1 to 2 servings of protein. Again, being ambitious with 2. You want to have your hand in a fist is your serving of veggies, 1 to 2 servings of veggies, with the hopes that you have 2. Your cupped hand, right? This way, cupped hand. I gotta do this. Is your serving of your starch, right? And then the thumb, tip of your thumb, so where that little line is up, is your serving of fats. Now that one's a little bit harder to do, but you can try it. So your thumb look at my thumb, how far it goes back. Does your thumb do that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We have hitchhiker thumbs.
Mhm.
So that's really easy to do, you guys, to be like, okay, I'm using the PDF that we're going to send over or have in the show notes. I'm using my palm or my plate to put those foods on, and I'm golden. Right?
So in summary, there are multiple ways to account for how to include the macronutrients. It
Absolutely.
doesn't have to just be tracking calories, or tracking macros. It doesn't have to be percentage. It could literally be visualization as well.
Yeah. And one thing I want to say, like, we have these percentages and things that we like. You know how many times I actually do that? Probably like 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like sometimes I just have clients focus on the protein and we just let the carbs and fats fall where they do. Sometimes tracking macros can feel like Tetris.
Yep.
You know, it's like, okay, I'm out of this. I have a little chart that says, okay, if you need carbs and fats, this is your list. If you need proteins and fats, here's your list. If you need proteins and carbs, here's your list. And that's helpful. But again, it can be overwhelming for some. So I just wanted to throw out there, like, if you're like, oh, I want to coach with these gals, but I don't know if I can hit all these percentages. Like, we work with you.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, for me, it's really what I prefer for myself for my carbohydrate intake. So, yeah. What else?
I do want to touch on the difference between like the tracking of the calories versus the tracking of the macros too, because I think that can kind of get, when people say, oh, I'm tracking calories, but then we're talking about the macros and that's something that's overlooked, or they go, I'm tracking macros and they're not aware of the calorie count. So what we mean by the difference of, you can track calories. So let's say there's 2,000 calories. And then you can track the macros. So, and those are typically done by percentages or grams. So the macros make up the calories, as we've been talking about. So your fats, protein, and carbs overall, minus the alcohol, make up the calories. You can hit your macro targets, but also be over or under consuming your calorie target too.
That often.
Yeah. So, or you can hit your calorie target, but not be hitting your individual macro targets. So sometimes there's a relationship that we as coaches like to have between the two. But as you've said, sometimes we're not really worried about one or the other. So like, for example, the client that's new to me, I don't really care about her calories right now because they are relatively low, but I want her to hit a minimum protein. And if that means she goes over, we'll say 2,000 calories, I'm okay with that. If that means she goes under 2,000 calories, it's okay because she still hit that protein mark.
Right.
So I did want to touch on that because I think when I was first going through all this, I didn't really understand the difference between calories and macros, and that the macros can fluctuate, but the calories could still stay the same, or we can fluctuate the macros and that would change the calories as well based on calorie per gram.
And in MyFitnessPal, we have to remember, or any sort of calorie tracker, we have to remember that that's data source, like crowdsourced, excuse me. And the person has to put the food in the entries. So the macros and the calories don't add up all the time. Or a lot of these foods have like net carbs, right? Which we don't want to be doing net carbs, you guys. Like fiber, yes, we want high fiber, but what they're doing is taking the fiber count and deducting it from the total carbs. But not all fiber responds to each person's body the same way. So it's not like this cross cancel in everyone's body. So oftentimes, even when you're using the scanner on MyFitnessPal, it will actually bring up the net carbs. So then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I'm at my calories, but I still have, 30 carbs left. It's because those 30 carbs are the carbs that are supposed to be in that low carb, net carb food. So that's a really good point there.
Going back to your marketing scheme, is I'm pretty sure the net carbs was created by the Atkins diet too. Did you know that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's
1,000.
not even like a thing. It's something they created in the marketing department to make you feel better about having carbs when you should feel good to have
exactly.
Carbs.
Eat the carbs. Eat the carbs. It's, again, I've explained to you kind of, if you go to, so let's talk about the disadvantages of some of these diets that are based on macros, right? So, and we'll talk about paleo too, right? Or the carnivore. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So keto, low carb, you know, a lot, and I explained this to you guys early on, a lot of the research on keto diets were on like 18-year-old males, not women with reproductive cycles and or women going through the menopause transition.
Mm-hmm.
Probably there are none for that because we don't care about us fuckers. Anyway, all I want to say is that they don't really care about us. Who sings that?
What is that?
Come
It's a
on,
rap
man.
song, isn't it?
No, it's a Michael Jackson song.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
so what we see in women, specifically in reproduction, is our bodies do not like to be, and I said this, I was listening to a recent podcast of us like editing it, like our bodies don't like to be in that energy, that negative energy balance.
Right.
It does not like it. It is always looking to make sure it's safe to reproduce and all of those things that are special to women. And what happens though is in low carb, our bodies again are in a stress state. Again, if we're also in a hormonally changing body, because that's not just perimenopause, that could be PCOS, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism. And if we're in a stress state and then we have no carbs, our body sees that as a stress because we're not getting energy in, then it can actually pare down muscle in that state, put it into the bloodstream as blood sugar, right? So now we're losing muscle too, which is exactly what we don't want. So why don't we just eat the carbs and avoid that altogether? You know, like it's not, it's what you eat as in quality, like that, especially like when I was your age, that didn't even matter.
Yeah, I
Like
went
it was
2 points on this is
okay.
one, when people limit carbs and like go on this like keto strict regimen, and this is going to be the same for paleo too, is do you really expect to never have a carb again?
Right.
Because what happens and what I've found when people do that is they realize they hit this plateau that you're talking about, or this kind of state where things are not going well, homeostasis is not happening. And then to reintroduce carbs elicits a lot of fear, right? And so now we're not only are we working on getting your body back to a good level that it thrives at, but we've got to work on a bigger mindset challenge because now we've been scared of having carbs because at some point you probably did get some results, but then you eventually had carbs again. Like, and especially considering like what we talked about, a carb is sweet potatoes. If you really like sweet potatoes, you really expect to never have sweet potatoes for the rest of your life. It's just not sustainable. And then two, another thing is Rhonda Patrick. So for those of you who like the science fitness kind of podcast, she was on, I forget if she was on something or if I was listening to her podcast, but she was talking about keto. And that a lot of people don't even understand, like to get, because they're like, oh, I got into ketosis or whatever, because that's the goal of keto is to get into ketosis. But what a lot of people don't understand is to get to ketosis is a lot of determination and strictness. And even if, say, like, for example, you just have a bite of cauliflower, for some people, that might take you out of that transition period and you have to restart over. So that's where I'm like, okay, so we can't even have cauliflower in keto. Like now, if someone's telling you, let's go and like someone who's a medical provider who has experience, like, so sometimes with epilepsy, they're looking at keto as a meal of like a viable way to have nutrients for epilepsy that helps reduce it. That's different. We're talking about like the normal woman listening to this podcast, trying to like hack her body for the weight loss or like to feel better or to reduce inflammation. It's not through keto most of the time.
Right. Well, even in our Mediterranean style diets, there's still, you know, your root vegetables, your fruit, your veggies, all the things, right? So keto would be your high fat, low carb, right? So you guys remember, my parents owned a cafeteria in, I don't remember what building it was. They had them in federal buildings. So we'll say it was when they had it in the IRS building, downtown Phoenix. People started doing, like my mom would be like, their meals are disgusting. She's like, they would have like 8 pieces of bacon, like 4, sausage links and 4 eggs. And that was what they would eat. And I'm like, your arteries are going to get clogged, dude. Like, what do you think? You have cheese instead of like a whole grain, like piece of toast. You make it a cheese toast. Like, no, stupid. What do you think that's going to do for you? And again, all you're doing And all anyone did on keto was lose the water right away. So like, this is working. And like you said, then they have that couple of bites, or they go to the party and they have the cake and they're like, oh, my weight's all back. No, you're just retaining water.
Right.
The same water you lost. You're not
Yep.
losing fat. So,
Yep.
so carnivore, I'm not as well versed in this. So I feel like this is a you thing.
Carnivore is essentially a meat only diet. And so that was made popular, I think, more so by like Jordan Peterson and his daughter and some other guy too. I forget who.
He just came out and said that he had a bunch of issues with.
Okay, well, point proven.
Let me look it up.
I forget who it was. So they talk more so about it from like an autoimmune issue. And again, like if a doctor who is well versed in this, like who works with patients and has that nutrition background, or maybe a dietitian on staff is recommending it for your own health, that's a different story. But to literally only eat meat, like you're missing your fiber, you can get your fats, I guess, from the cuts of meat, but I think it's just another unsustainable thing that you're putting yourself in, because so let's say you only eat meat, like, so when you go out to restaurants, how are you going to order that? Right. And you could say like, well, this is just how I eat, because I was in this place too, when I was doing paleo, like, this is just how I eat, you know, like this is the standard that I hold to myself. But after a while, it gets pretty fatiguing. And then say it does come out with like butter, right? So butter's a fat, butter's actually a dairy. So technically not carnivore. Now, what do? Right? Like, does it turn into a meltdown? Or I like to use, like, for moms a lot of the time, or even friends, like, so if you're going out, like, are you really not going to have the piece of cake at your daughter's birthday ever again, or at her wedding? Because that's a reality that you're driving into yourself. But, and again, just like the keto or the low carb, is now adding those foods back in is really scary. So like, even just like, can we have some blueberries, right? Blueberries technically are very high fiber, low carb. They're great for you.
I love blueberries.
I know. But then you tell somebody who's been doing carnivore, like, why don't we have some blueberries? It's life shattering, right? And so again, it's just not, you're seeing the water weight lose because you're dropping the carbs, and you're probably going to risk some kind of nutrient deficiency from not having like real fats. So that's my thoughts.
Well, I was looking up like as Sean Baker was like the guy that wrote the carnivore diet.
Sean Baker, hang on.
Yeah, I think he was the one, because didn't Rogan just do that diet? And he was like, oh, look at all this water.
Rogan always, he does it. He likes it. But so Rogan does it, but then he also like incorporates berries and stuff and fruits. Okay, so that's great. But then he doesn't stay consistent with it all the time either.
Why? Because it's not something you can be consistent with. Right. So just be careful, guys. I think, you know, our little rant here is just eat a balanced diet.
Yeah.
You guys, if there was some miraculous diet out there where you didn't eat one thing and you lost weight and kept it off, then we wouldn't have an obesity crisis in this world, our country, and parts of other westernized cultures. So westernized civilizations. So just eat your fucking food. Just eat your macronutrients, your micronutrients. We never even got into fiber being one of them. We like that. We love some fiber around here. Listen, pooping is a wonderful thing. I love a good poop. I sometimes love pooping so much that I text Amanda about the fact that I want to show my husband my beautiful poops, but I can't. So I just have to text Amanda. That's only happened once, but you know, did we talk about it? I think we talked about it.
I think you've told me too.
Listen, I'm like, damn, that came out of my.
Let's put it this way. Your bowel health is a big indicator of your overall health. So if you should have regular bowel movements at least once a day. If you're having bowel movements 5 times a day, that's a different issue too, right? So I had a gal reach out to me who didn't have a lot of fiber because her bowel movement, like the way she thought too much fiber was good. And I was like, no, we want fiber. And I've seen this too with my vegetarian clients, is that their bowel movements, like you want a nice banana, You want it nice and like long. You don't want little clumps like you see the deer. You don't want to be straining, and you want it to just flow out for the majority of the time. So
what if it's like 3 bananas?
that's great, I think.
It's a world record.
Yeah, that's a lot of bananas.
I'm like, I'm gonna double the scale after this.
I know. That's sometimes I do too, where I'm like, holy cow.
Like, how much weight was that? Oh man.
Those, you want good bowel health, because if you're not, like if you're straining or if they're runny, we're missing some kind of nutrient, or we have some gut issue going on. And when I say
dehydrated.
Yeah, or we're dehydrated, or even too, we have a pelvic floor issue too. So that's a thing.
I wanted to touch on something just to circle back to like carbs too. If you're someone who's like an endurance athlete and you're doing like longer workouts, like I think I talked about a friend who did the dry try at Orange Theory, and I had to tell him like, well, how are you going to replenish your carbohydrate store? Because it's 90 minutes and then you're doing 2. Don't listen. He doesn't ask me for advice. Other than that, I told him like, you need to have something in between to replenish your glucose stores, because you're not doing that. So, the longer, so after 90 minutes of like, I won't say strenuous, but a higher
level of volume.
Thank you. I was like, not intensity, but yeah. So higher level of volume activity, we want to make sure that we are replenishing our carbohydrates mid-workout as well. Some people will ask, well, what about carbs before a workout, after a workout? Now, again, this can be specific to your phase in life. I've noticed with my clients who are going through the perimenopause transition, having a little bit of carbs and protein before their meal or before their workouts definitely is helpful. And then replenishing with a high protein and carbohydrate rich post workout meal has been helpful for some of my clients, but not all of them. Some of them, like me, I work out fasted. Still to this day, I don't see spikes in my blood sugar. So, that's that.
Well, I think the other thing too that we get, this question comes up a lot with our Facebook group, is when should I have my protein shake? Should it be before or after the workout?
Yeah.
And I'm always like, well, one, are you hungry going into the workout, and what time of day? Because again, like for a morning workout, if it's early in the morning, like I used to do fasted too, because it was just like, I want to get up and go and get in this. And sometimes, and even now I have to eat before my workout. And even then it's like, it just doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
For me. Right. But the protein before or after doesn't matter. Now, what does matter is, does that protein shake keep you consistent to have enough protein throughout the day? Then yes, it does matter. But if you can make a whole meal before with protein or after, that's going to be the better option too.
Right. I heard something, it was on Mind Pump, where they're like, if you can't get your protein in, just drink one of those protein shakes with your meal, like instead of water.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not a terrible idea. But yeah, so for me, and people are like, well, what do I do? Depending on how you feel, depending on if we have symptoms of something else going on, like an insulin resistance type of situation, then I might pull out the kind of nitty gritty of when to eat, how much to eat for blood sugar reasons. But again, also then that doesn't mean that every person going through perimenopause should have a pre and post workout meal. You should probably eat around your freaking workout though, at some point.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyway, anything else?
No.
Vegetarians.
Oh,
They're probably not listening to us.
Probably not. But not
that it's bad. I don't think it's bad, by the way.
I don't think it's bad. I think for me, because I've had a vegetarian client, it's incredibly challenging. And she literally did it for religious reasons too. And she's a very sweet lady, but her performance kept declining. And I knew it wasn't what I was doing with her. And part of it, when she first came to me, she had broken her foot and she was an avid hiker. So we just did like a lot of strength training, like upper body stuff, and just what we could, we worked around it. So then when the foot started recovering, she was still coming to me twice a week. And then she was starting to go back to hiking and being more active. And her performance took a plummet. And I kept telling her, like, if you're not going to have a protein like meat source, I totally support that. but can we at least do like protein powder? Can we make sure we're getting Greek yogurt? Can we start doing, and I sent her like the combination of proteins, that you can make, like the beans and the rice or whatever it is. But that takes extra effort too. And she is an older gal, and she comes from the era of eat less and you're fine. And I'm not hungry ever. And I had an almond today, so I'm good.
Almond mom.
Yeah. So it was hard to get her to take that initiative. But what we felt like, can you get this? There's a protein pasta from Sprouts that I really like for clients in this situation. That's like 25 grams of protein per serving. And that's actually pretty good. So I was like, can we have that? And then what she actually started ending up doing was having a piece of chicken breast throughout the week and a piece of salmon throughout the week. She felt an immense difference too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, again, going back to like what we talked about with these variables for clients, that was enough for her. Now, is that 100 grams? No. But is that enough to change her perspective of like how she feels throughout the day and how she can do these activities that she enjoys? Yes. Does it still align with her like religious practice where she's comfortable with going outside of that box a bit? Yes. So then that's fine. But so vegetarians and vegans, like you can do that, but you have to realize you have to make an immense amount of extra effort to be hitting a protein target
and or supplement.
But now what do we really like? And I see this too with them is they want to minimize the supplements because most of the time they're doing it for like environmental, organic, like some kind of reason. But from my opinion, it's very hard to have both. So you either choose that I'm just going to supplement the shit out of this diet or this way of eating, or I'm going to try and incorporate more like animal sources. And even I've had clients who I'm like, what about fish, right? Because that's, for some reason, people will do pescatarian.
Yes.
Even though it's still poor practices for animal welfare, but whatever. But then I'm seeing them eat like 200 grams of fish per meal. And I'm like, that's a lot. Like, okay. But it just makes it's just an added challenge when you're already involved in that diet culture and trying to get out of it.
Yeah. I do love me some fish.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
I love some shrimp. Give me some salmon. Give me all the things. Yeah. Swordfish this weekend.
Oh, you had swordfish?
All right. I think we've covered it enough. We don't need to, overdo it on the macros. So if you guys are interested in that PDF, it's very simple. It has animal proteins on one side, plant proteins on the other side. It says pick one from this column, pick two from this column. You can make some bomb-ass meals, throw in some starches in there, add a little bit of fats. Boom! You are golden. If you like our content, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. When you do that, that tells them we are good at our jobs, and they should probably show us to more people. We are in the 1%. We're in the 1% of podcasters.
I was listening to it and I was like, damn, good for us.
Yeah, we're like 0.5% because we have 40 podcasts. So, if you love us even more than that, you want to see us on a daily basis, please give us a follow on Instagram. Myself and the team are at Mindset of Matter Coaching. Amanda is at fitbyamanda.az. You will find these recordings on YouTube at The Mindset of Matter. And please don't forget about our promos that we discussed throughout this episode. If you're interested in coaching with us, you will find the Clarity Call link below. We have a variety of coaching programs for you. And if you only walk away with one piece of advice from this podcast today, we want you to remember one thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror. Bye-bye.
Bye.